Morning, folks. The soap, excuse me, is an almond scented soap, or this one here might be considered the original scent of this lineup. This particular soap is 3.36 ounces, I think is what it figured out to be, and it came with a, I guess you might say, an interlid, if you will, and pop that out. That's what it looks like there on the inside, and it's fairly firm. But it was relatively easy to scrape out with a spoon to place in my lathering bowl. Something about in my head, who knows why, almond scent seems to bring out Brut aftershave. It's just something about almonds and Brut just seemed for me just kind of work together with my nose. Already put a hot towel to the face this morning and used Proraso Preshave this morning. And you got the usual suspects in the way of Crown King alum, complete with a rubber band this morning. And I still got a little bit of my Humphrey's witch hazel that's got menthol and peppermint in it. And I got it whipped up here with a Semogue brush with a boar knot. This is a model 1250. And I got it whipped up here in my wooden bowl that's walnut and cherry. See, I've got it whipped up there. This bowl came by the way of this distinctive goat. Don't think these bowls are being made anymore. Colorado Razor Design would be a good place to stop at if you're looking for a wooden bowl. The blade of choice today is Aster Green. And this is, I guess you might say, the old stock, where the print on the blade is a bit more pronounced than what I've been seeing here of recent. This is an iKon OG1. One side's an open comb, and one side has the safety bar. And if you haven't seen it before, if you can see it at all, that's what the end of the handle looks like. And I have to say, since there is no overhang, and this is how this particular one is designed, when it comes to removing the blade, some blades, with the close tolerances that are made, might get hung up on the threads on that post, so you want to be kind of careful removing the blade, or you can see that I lickety split, cut my finger trying to get that blade out. I mean, had it cut before I even had an idea what was going on. And it took about an hour before I finally got that thing to stop bleeding. But anyway, you want to be careful removing the blade. I guess you might say that might be a con. It's a plus if you're shaving underneath your nose, but if you're not, getting that blade out can be kind of tricky. Like I say, it does seem to get hung up on the post, so may have to work with it a little bit. I guess you might say that's one of those nice things about, you've seen some of the caps where they're concave at the ends. Makes it easier to grab the blade, even though there's not very much overhang. Just something to think about. This almond scent is, it's definitely present, but I wouldn't say it's, at least per my nose, it's not a strong scent. It does remind me of Razor Rock P160, which is almond scented also, and perhaps Cella. But like I said, the scent strength is present, it's there, but it's, at least for my nose, it's not overwhelming or super strong or anything like that. Scent strength doesn't compare to Arco, for instance, if you're familiar with Arco. Or Derby, as far as that goes. It's further down on the scale, but it's definitely present, which, depending on what you're expecting out of your soap. We'll start with the open comb this morning. What you're wanting out of your soap in the way of scent strength. This one here was pretty much designed in hopes that it would not irritate anybody's skin. At least that's the best I can, find on research. And when it comes to research, what I could find out about Brut. Brut's been around for a little while, not quite as long as English leather. If I remember right, I think the best I could find out, Brut came out in 1964, and Fabergé was the, I guess you might say, the proud owner at the time, and it's changed hands a little bit since then. But it's considered a classic aftershave. I think there was a version of it that was referred to as Brut 33. I vaguely remember that. As I was growing up, but I don't. I definitely don't have any of it that's labeled that way. I don't. Be honest with you, I can't recall if I ever did. As over the years. This particular bottle here is plastic. The this one here, it does say aftershave on there. So in other words, this is also 5 ounces as opposed to 3.4. At least for me, it's readily available, seeing that it's a aftershave, then you got splash on, and then you may see something that comes in a spray bottle. And this one here, aftershave, believe it or not, is not always on the shelf. It's kind of odd about that. Splash on is, but aftershave, different story. Scent is still there. I know sometimes, you kind of wonder when you're watching a video about scent strength throughout the shave. Sometimes I can smell it when I'm whipping it up, but when I go to put it on my face, my nose doesn't pick it up at all. Across the grain, and we're still going to use the open comb, and then against the grain I'm going to use the safety bar, which is a lot, how you see, smoother. I'm not sure what it's patterned after, the safety bar, but if I had to guess, I would say it'd be the equivalent of a Gillette Tech, if you're familiar with that. Very smooth on the safety bar side. Open comb is a bit more aggressive. Definitely more feedback on the open comb. Now the difference in shave in between the aster green and the feather blade, aster is a bit smoother, especially noticeable on the open comb. Yeah, definitely noticeable on the open comb. The safety bar is very smooth. Previous shaves, just really smooth, nice. Kind of helped prompt me to look in deciding whether or not I want to get the tech head or not. I don't know though. I mean, I do have the actual tech, so Gillette tech, so I'm not so sure I really need it or not. If I want to shave like that, I'll just grab one of my Gillette techs that I've got. But this is a pretty nice shaver if you're looking for an adjustable that's a non-adjustable, which kind of makes me, especially after this, I need to. I have a feather adjustable. It only has 2 settings. That kind of reminds me of this this shaver here. Haven't seen a whole lot of recent history, but it's that particular shaver, safety bar this time. It does remind me of this one here. Very smooth on the against the grain pass. So if against the grain is problematic for you, something like this might be right up your alley. Very smooth, mild, not aggressive at all. So in other words, against the grain pass shouldn't be quite as irritating as it might be with the open comb if you're having those kind of issues. A smooth, comfortable shave with the safety barred side would be pretty easy to do. I don't even think it's going out on a limb that the safety bar should fit most folks for a daily shaver. Shave was pretty smooth. That blade is a better match than the feather blade. Feather was a bit aggressive. Did find a sore spot over here. Yesterday seemed to feel a little bit tender. But today it's feeling pretty good. Wasn't noticeable like it was yesterday. Feather was just a little bit too edgy. Probably, more uses, 5 uses, the shades would be a lot different over time. That first use on the open comb was a little bit more aggressive. This is a better matchup as goes for Aster Green. Face feels pretty good though. It's moisturized, smooth. Got just a little bit left in the way of whiskers, but for me, works just fine. Reaching for the alum block in the wrong spot. No stinging this morning, which that probably should tell you how much better a matchup this blade is with this particular shaver. I have links down below for most of this stuff that's readily available. I really like that rubber band. Helps me hang on to that alum block. Yeah, no stinging this morning. That's pretty good. Not that stinging makes it a bad shave or anything like that. It just helps me gauge on how things went with the shave. And I'm also taking, I guess you might say, in consideration how my technique was. Now that I've got a few shaves under my belt with this particular shaver, pretty comfortable with it. It's not that tough to find the edge, to get used to it, in my opinion. You spend more time working with the finding out what blade works best for you. That's how I would put it. Outside that, it's a pretty easy shaver to use. Not difficult to find the angle. Let's see if I can try not to do this on camera, right? All right, we'll go ahead and take this apart. We're going to see if I can get this blade to come out really easy. And if you can't tell, that post is a little lengthy. This wasn't where I caught my finger, was taking the base plate off, which that works out better. It was actually stuck in the cap last time, and that's where I struggled getting it out. And because it just didn't come out on its own. So when I went to put my finger down there to grab a hold of it, I guess I just caught it just right, wasn't paying close enough attention. But anyway, that's what the blade looks like. Guess you might consider this old stock. That print on there is pretty bold. The print I've seen in recent history of the new ones, the letters are in outline, and the center of the letters are not darkened in like this is. I'm going to set this off to the side. Like I say, yesterday was quite, like I say, it took me about an hour. It was a good long moment trying to get this thing to seal up, trying to find some super glue or something to seal this thing up, because it just would not stop bleeding. Good stuff here. I made my own soap with some of this. I matched it up with palm olive, and I think I ought to bring that out one of these days here pretty soon, as well as my Stetson. Like I say, Brut's a classic. It's been around for quite a while. And I guess you might say, as a note, as it goes for classics, eventually it will come in the mail. I'm hoping it will show up. Tobacco. I have never tried tobacco. I've seen it many times. I went ahead and, if I remember right, I ordered it because I was struggling in between getting it in the container, the ceramic container, the porcelain container, or going with the stick. And I thought, since I am a bowl lather and I don't, lathering inside the container, when I first started shaving, I did lather inside the container. And then the more the conversation at that point in time was taking place about how you should dry it out and so on and so forth. And then I thought, wouldn't it be easier just to scrape it out and put it in a bowl and lather that way? And this way, for instance, in other words, if I wanted to say somebody, give this to somebody else to try, because I've got, some other almond scents, just thought I'd give this soap a try. And looks nice and clean in there. I don't think anybody would be offended if they, got this, if I paid it forward and gave it to them. I don't think they would be offended to look at this. It's not quite like new, but it still looks very clean in there. It's just something that, I got to thinking about, over very many conversations I was reading about, just trying to figure out what would be best, even for me, where I felt more comfortable with it. And that's just what I do. It works well for me. Like I say, if I decide I want to give the soap to somebody, it's nice and clean. Don't think anybody would have quite the issue with it, as opposed to seeing where maybe, some lather was still in there, and some people that may not set well in their head, which I understand. It seems like to me, the almond and the Brut seem to work well together. It gives it a slight twist to the scent. Good shave this morning. Hope everybody's doing well. I know it's crazy with the virus. It hasn't peaked yet. They're saying the next, counting this week, then going into next week here locally, here in Oklahoma, that it's supposed to be peaking. So I guess you might say it might be a time that we'll see how this works out. Hope everybody's doing well. Stay safe and smooth shaves to you.